Hi guys, so as you can see, I'm at the London EV show here at the Excel Centre. I'm actually working here. This is the second day of the show. But some news came out last night, which I couldn't resist updating you guys on. And of course it relates to electric cars, appropriately enough. And what has happened is that last week there was a meeting between the Transport Secretary, Louise Hay, and Business and Trade Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds. And they hosted a roundtable with the automotive and the charging industry to discuss the electric vehicle transition according to the ZEV mandate. The ZEV mandate, which I've discussed in several videos before, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. The ZEV mandate basically stipulates that a certain percentage of cars that dealers sell must be electric, and that percentage changes every year. So this was the first year, 2024, and the stipulated percentage was 22%. So, and then next year increases and increases until you get to 2030 when it's up to 80%. Why only 80%? Because there's an allowance there for hybrids up to 2035. So that's actually how that works. Now what's been happening is that this ZEV mandate, which was regarded as the only way to get everybody to transition to electric vehicles, seems like it's gone too far, too quickly. And this is something that, to be honest, I have raised in the past. I have discussed it in previous videos, and I have said before that this could be not only detrimental, but actually disastrous for the car industry as we know it, because of the fact that you're pushing a policy onto them which isn't natural in the way that an economy works, supply and demand economy normally works. So there was a meeting last week, then there was a meeting last night. So Jonathan Reynolds said that there would be a consultation on the so-called zero emissions vehicle mandate, the ZEV mandate. It's actually got another name which I'll come to in a bit, to give the car industry clarity. Paul Hollick, who was the chair of that meeting, said it has become clear that however well-meaning its intentions, the ZEV mandate needs to change, and it is good news that the government has recognized this fact relatively soon after being elected and appears to be taking the issue seriously. It's also positive that the consultation announced by Jonathan Reynolds last night will be concluded quickly. So actually this is the one last night. This is what's happened last night. So so there was an earlier meeting, then there was another meeting, and then this meeting last night. Basically, several newspapers and magazines, including Autocar, I think was the first one to say this, are reporting that it's confirmed that a consultation is going to happen. It's going to happen quickly on the ZEV mandate, and to look in, well, basically it's the government sort of scrambling around to try and make sense of the ZEV mandate in terms of how it works, A, for the environment, and B, for the car industry, and C, most importantly, I would say, for you, the consumer. Now, like I said, I'm here at the London EV show, and I do like EVs. I review EVs. I'm here working at the show. I'm here supporting the show, and the reality is that EVs are good cars, and they're getting better. And the rate of technology and the progress that's happening. You come here and you look around this exhibition, and you see all the innovations and the progress of technology, and it's just exponentially increasing. But what I've always said is that people should buy EVs because they want to buy EVs, because the EV is the right thing for them, because it fits into their lifestyle, because they enjoy it, because they like it, because they desire it, not because they're being forced to buy it. And is this consultation a kind of realization of that, and a sort of waking up to the reality of what's actually happening in the market? Well, let's get more into that right after this.
A brown car guy. Brown car guy.
Right, so as I said, so in previous videos I have discussed the ZEV mandate, and I have spoken about the fact that, potentially it could be disastrous for the car industry, particularly the legacy car industry as we know it, because it's a lumbering industry and it's taking a while to make that transition over to EVs, and as we'll see, it's already having a major impact. Now, just to recap, as I said, 2024, the requirement was that 22% all cars sold should be EVs. In fact, we are only at 18.1% as we come to the end of 2024. This requirement actually climbs to 28% next year. So we're only at 18% this year, and it's 18.1 to be precise, and that's another 10% for next year. And then by, like I said, by 2030, it's going to be 80%. And if manufacturers miss this target, they're looking at a fine of £15,000 per non-compliant car that they sell. So every car that's non-compliant, so is non-EV, for example, is a 15,000. That's above the required, the allowed quota. It's £15,000, and that's works out to a lot of money. In fact, how much money does it work out to? Well, Reuters has worked it out, and it's working out to $7.5 billion. Staggeringly, $7.5 billion next year. But what's happening at the moment is that because we have this situation, the trouble is manufacturers are really, really struggling with this scenario because they're not going to hit their targets. And not hitting the targets, not because they're not making enough EVs or they're not trying to sell enough EVs, they are, but the consumer demand isn't there. And automotive giants like Stellantis, which owns Vauxhall, are sounding the alarm. And Stellantis, of course, I think yesterday, day before, I think they dropped a bombshell because, or actually I think it was yesterday's news, they are considering shutting down the Luton van factory. They are shutting down the Luton van factory, putting over 1,000 jobs at risk. And they're saying that's because of EV. Now, it could be argued that they had already planned that and it wasn't entirely because of EV, but that's certainly a contributing factor. But the thing is, when you think about who are the kind of companies that would be complaining about this, for example, companies that don't actually have any EVs on their ranges, such as Suzuki, for example, not yet, and there's one coming next year. Toyota, which is a giant. I mean, imagine how much money they stand to lose when they only sell 2 EVs, which they've only recently introduced. There's one for Toyota and one for Lexus. That's it. The rest of the range is still either hybrid or petrol diesel. But it isn't, and other manufacturers are also struggling with that. But here's the thing: the companies that were most vocal and that have been in this consultation or this meeting with the sort of pressure body from the manufacturer side that is going to the government includes Stellantis and Nissan. Now, Nissan, if you recall, are pioneers in the EV field with the Nissan Leaf, which with best-selling electric cars in some countries. So Nissan is ahead of the game. They've been working on this technology a while. They've introduced new EV models as well. And then you've got Stellantis. Stellantis, the group that owns Chrysler, Citroën, Peugeot, Jeep, Dodge, Alfa Romeo, all of these brands. And Stellantis is a company that's gone heavily EV, much to the detriment of some of those fabled brands, I would say, such as Alfa Romeo. But they've bet the farm on it. I mean, they've invested heavily on this. So somebody like Stellantis turning around and saying, "Yeah, we're not sure about this," when they've pretty much moved everything. I mean, the American brands such as Dodge is suffering because they moved that to EV. It's quite extraordinary. And of course, we mentioned Vauxhall and of course the van factory as well. But then you have other manufacturers. We have a scenario at the moment where quite a few manufacturers have kind of not quite U-turned, but have pedaled back a little bit from their commitment to going full EV. So, for example, you've got Volvo, which had committed to it, is now saying, well, we're not so sure about it. You've got Mercedes saying the same thing, General Motors, Ford, recently, I covered that in another video, they have slashed thousands of jobs across Europe. That's also happened. And then the other thing is we're here, we've got one of the companies exhibiting here is Lotus. And Lotus did a big fanfare recently a few years back, when they launched Lotus Emira, saying the Lotus Emira is going to be their last internal combustion engine car. However, they're now saying that, well, actually, we might have a few hybrids. So even though they've got the electric saloon and the electric SUV, but they're now saying that they may also do that. Hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, make sure you hit that like button, comment, share, tell the world that. So anyway, going back to this dinner last night, Jonathan Reynolds, as I've mentioned, said he was profoundly concerned about the impact of the policy on the automotive industry. And this came, like I said, after the announcement from Stellantis about the Vauxhall plant. They said that they will close that and consolidate UK manufacturing of vans to create an all-electric hub at the Ellesmere Port plant in Cheshire, where it's set to invest 50 million. Renault said that Labour remains absolutely committed to banning the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2030, but it will now consult on a better way forward. We have heard you loud and clear on the need for support to make the transition a success, he told attendees. I'm going to be frank with you, I don't believe the policies that we have inherited, and I mean specifically in relation to zero-emission vehicles, are operating today in a way that anyone intended them to. Now, SMMT, Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, the chief executive Mike Hall said the news from Stellantis, along with Ford's recent decision to cut 800 jobs from its UK operations over the next 3 years, showed the times were very tough. And he said, we've seen announcements globally of production cuts, profit warnings, job losses, and the UK was never going to be immune from this. A new announcement last weekend, and regrettably today, these are related to Ford and Vauxhall, are not just a sobering reminder of the challenges the industry faces, but most importantly, of worrying and grave concern for the livelihoods of so many. Alongside its annual dinner on Tuesday, the trade body also warned that the pace of transition to electric vehicles would devastate, this is the word they use, devastate the automotive industry as demand for zero-emission vehicles failed to meet ambitions. That's the demand, that's the problem. People don't want to buy them. The cars are getting great, but it's still early days for a lot of people. So Reuters, as I said, they've announced that 7.5 billion is the bill that's going to be hit with manufacturers going to be hit with next year, and of course this is ultimately going to be passed on to you. I mean, if they're paying £15,000 fine on each vehicle, who do you think is going to be picking up that extra tab as well? So the amazing thing about this is Labour politicians. This is Labour. Labour, which we thought was going to be anti-car, that was going to come in, that was going to go hard on this, that was going to roll back the 2035 deadline to 2030, but they're the ones that have now turned around and said, yeah, we're not so sure about this, we need to think about this. So again, it just tells you've got companies like Stellantis, which are investing so heavily in EVs, they're going, whoa, wait a minute. You've got governments like Labour, which are so big on the whole climate thing, on the whole EV thing, they're going, whoa, wait a minute. And it's something that we've been saying. It's not about going one way or the other. It's not about whether EVs are right or wrong. It's not about whether climate change is real or not. It's about the realities of the everyday situation, about using common sense and logic to approach these things, right? According to Autocar, that the government, this is what came out last night, they said that the backtracking started after car companies banded together to put their foot down. And it's clear the government didn't see the industry fallout coming. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where people make these laws and they make these policies and they don't quite look at the implications and the repercussions of these things. Ultimately, what is going to happen? This consultation is definitely a step in the right direction, no question about it. It's not going to fix everything, but it's going to be looking at the problems. It doesn't mean that there won't be a ZEV mandate. There will be a ZEV mandate. What is it called? Vehicle emission trading scheme is actually what it's called, because you can trade units and stuff like that with other manufacturers. So that's one thing where they can mitigate the fines, so they could buy credits from Tesla, for example, which only sells electric vehicles, etc., etc. But what the problem is that you have companies from like Tesla and you have companies from China that are coming in who are leaders in electric vehicles, but then you have legacy companies that looks like they're going bust on several levels in terms of their factories and facilities that they've got, because they can't make that change quick enough. They invested heavily into EV, then they found nobody was buying them, now they're stuck with unsold stock, and they're like, well, what do we do now? So they have to cut jobs, they have to cut production, they have to do that. As I said right at the beginning, EVs are very good. There's nothing wrong with EVs. They're getting better, they're getting better. If you go around this exhibition, like I said, you see the technology, the progress is absolutely staggering. But people got to buy EVs because they want to buy EVs, because they're good for them, because they fit into their lifestyle, because they desire. Don't forget, for a lot of people, a car is a huge purchase. They've got to be really committed before they make that decision, before they sign on the dotted line. So you can't be forced into making these decisions. You've got to convince them that it's the right car for you. If it is the right car for them, they'll buy them willingly. But what's happening this way, it's been the other way around. It's been policymakers telling car manufacturers to only make EVs, to sell those to consumers who are turning around and saying, well, actually, that's not what we wanted. We're not quite ready for that yet. And of course, there's the whole issue about charging infrastructure and stuff like that, which is a whole other argument. Of course, there's lots of people that are not happy about this, and they're saying that, well, this is rolling back on the progress that we made and stuff like that. But I think that it's just an adjustment to the reality of the situation. And I think that it'd be good, it'd be interesting to see what happens from this consultation and what they actually decide on it and how to move forward. I'd love to hear your views on it, and I look forward to hearing them in the comments below, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Meanwhile, I gotta get back to work. Hi guys, I've been writing. This is my first book, a novel, an all-out action thriller, and this one is a collection of 13 stories I've written over the course of 2 decades. The Euless Files and The Quantum Races by BC Guy are out now on Amazon.com. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links. Or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.